Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Sitting in for Pinky Webb, I'm Ria Tanwat Cotrillo together with Ruth Cabal. Today on the program, alert level now raised over Taal Volcano following a magmatic eruption. Evacuations are now underway for residents of Batangas towns near Taal. We also find out government contingency measures in place due to Taal's eruption. PHIVOLCS Director Renato Solidum and Office of Civil Defense Operations Service Director Bernardo Alejandro join us live. And later, a new era of beauty has come. Get to know the Positive Beauty campaign later in the program. Evacuation is now underway in several Batangas towns after Taal Volcano's magmatic eruption on Thursday. A magmatic eruption happens when magma and water interact explosively. Alert level 3 is now raised over Taal. Let's go straight to the source of this story. Science and Technology Undersecretary and PHIVOLCS Director Renato Solidum joins us. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, to start off with, could you tell us exactly what happened yesterday, Thursday, and can you explain to us in layman's terms exactly what is a magmatic eruption?
Well, essentially, yesterday we saw a 1 kilometer high eruption column, colored black, with spiny outline. Now, a magmatic eruption happens when magma would actually reach a water surface, like the main crater, and this interaction, because the magma is hot and the water is cooler, will cause fracturing and explosion. And this is different when magma just sits below and the gases for the magma would just heat up the water and would create steam that might cause it to explode. We call that kind of eruption phreatic. The other type of eruption is a magmatic eruption, meaning the driving force of the eruption would be the ascent of the magma with lots of gases. So if you combine both the steam and the water and magma and interacting together, the explosion will be called a magmatic eruption, where new materials are involved and extruded out of the volcano.
All right, sir. So how different or similar is this from Taal Volcano's eruption last January? That was also magmatic?
Yes, but the initial activity of Taal Volcano last year started with a phreatic eruption, where the steam generated the pressure and caused it to explode. Essentially, when the explosion happened, the pressure at the crater became much less, and the magma beneath Taal, which is full of gases and meaning highly pressurized, suddenly ascended. And so when the magma reached the surface, it interacted with the main crater lake water and caused magmatic eruption. So the big difference between this activity and last year is that this one started right away with magmatic eruption and the other one started with phreatic eruption. But because gases have been released this year before the magma was able to ascend near the surface, the explosion was not very similar to last year, which was essentially highly pressurized because the gases were not able to escape.
So given what we know about yesterday's eruption, will we expect more eruptions in the coming days? Now, I know volcanoes are very volatile. They can be very unpredictable. But with the data on hand, what are the chances of a bigger eruption happening?
Well, we expect similar styles of eruption, but it is also possible that larger explosions can happen larger than yesterday. But for very explosive eruptions, we need to monitor if new magma will ascend from below, which would contain more gases. The scenarios in Taal, as what we have seen in its history, after a relatively large explosion, there can be a series of explosions the following years, but these then were not as explosive as the first one. And sometimes the eruption would consist essentially of mainly fire fountaining or lava fountaining, which would feed the formation of lava flow. So those kind of explosions are not that dangerous and would be confined to the island. But because right now we have a phreatomagmatic eruption, the interaction of magma with water is really explosive, and this can cause the surge of materials moving horizontally down the slopes of the volcano and across the lake that can endanger people close to the shoreline. That's why we recommended the evacuation of those barangays in Agoncillo and Laurel in Batangas within 7 kilometers. To be safer, they have to be evacuated.
Sir, in connection with the eruption, have we monitored any earthquakes in the area?
There are earthquakes in Taal Volcano, but these are not very strong to be felt. So we've been recording earthquakes after the explosion. Before, not much earthquake. So essentially, the magma, as has been explained in the past, has been moving very slowly to really cause a lot of felt earthquake events.
All right, so those earthquakes that have been felt are related to yesterday's eruption.
Yes, there were earthquakes before, few, but there were more earthquakes, but not many after the eruption, but again, not felt. Essentially, the Taal Volcano, having erupted last year, has its passageways already opened up or hotter. So to create earthquakes that can be felt, you have to really break the rocks, which is not happening in Taal because it's already open a little bit.
So, Director, what are the worst case scenarios that we should be preparing for? Because we know that it is better to err on the side of caution here.
The worst case eruption would be that future explosions would generate pyroclastic density currents or base surges, which would be flows of hot ashes, rocks, and gases outward of the main crater, and this would be harmful to people's lives. We call that base surge also. And once the pyroclastic materials enter the water, it can displace the water and trigger volcanic tsunamis that will affect the shorelines.
All right, so that would be the worst case scenario. And as you said earlier, PHIVOLCS recommended the evacuation of certain barangays in Laurel and Agoncillo. Can you tell us exactly which areas and how long do we monitor this for before people can return to their homes?
Okay. The barangays that we recommended for evacuation are those in Agoncillo, barangays Bilibinwang and Banyaga. And in the town of Laurel, this would be Boso-Boso, Gulod, and part of eastern Bogaan East. And essentially, this would be those within the 7 kilometers. Now, we monitor the volcano parameters, and if there is a downward trend and we see it's really continuous, we look at 2 weeks window when we lower the alert level. So that's the procedure that we follow.
All right, so kung 2 weeks po, ibig sabihin the evacuees may have to stay in evacuation centers during that 2-week period while you're monitoring it?
Yes, if there is a downward trend. If the monitoring parameter stays the same, that's not a downward trend.
Right, so they will still have to stay away from their homes.
Yes.
All right, now we know there are many volcanoes in the Philippines. Could this trigger activity in other volcanoes within our archipelago?
Well, the activity at Taal would not have any effect on other volcanoes. These are not connected. They have their own magma chambers or sources of magma. And these are monitored independently. The other volcanoes in the country that are at alert level 1 would be Mayon in Albay, Bulusan Volcano in Sorsogon, and Canlaon in Negros. And of course, here in Central Luzon, Pinatubo also.
All right. And lastly, sir, before we let you go, any reminders for the public, especially those within the 7-kilometer danger zone?
Well, just make sure that you stay calm. Make sure that you have your important things with you all the time, like masks, and especially with COVID-19 also, alcohol. Importante po na sumunod po sa mga utos o rekomendasyon ng mga local government. They would know the procedures already, having had experiences in the past and with coordination through the leadership of the Batangas Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction Management Office. It's also important for them to listen to the authorities so as not to be confused with many other information coming out of social media.
All right, thank you so much for that. We always appreciate you here. PHIVOLCS Director Renato Solidum. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. We get to know the contingency measures in place amid the threat of Taal Volcano's eruption. Office of Civil Defense Operations Service Director Bernardo Alejandro joins us live after the break. You are watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Office of Civil Defense Operations Service Director Bernardo Alejandro. Sir, good morning. Thank you for joining us here on The Source.
Good morning and magandang umaga sa ating lahat.
Sir, could you tell us please, saan na po tayo in terms of preparation and response dito sa Taal?
As of this morning, we have already received reports that there are already 11 evacuation centers housing evacuees from 13 barangays galing sa 6 towns, from San Nicolas, Laurel, Agoncillo, Taal, Tanawan City, and Balete. So around 345 families na, or close to 1,400 individuals ay nasa evacuation centers na, and the evacuation is ongoing. Sinusunod po natin ang advisory ng PHIVOLCS that those in the immediate vicinity, lalo na dito sa Agoncillo and Laurel, ay mag-evacuate na muna because nagtaas tayo ng alert level.
Right. I was just speaking to Director Solidum, at sinasabi niya that they will be monitoring Taal for at least 2 more weeks. So what are the contingency plans in place considering na baka 2 linggo talaga tatagal yung mga evacuees dyan sa evacuation centers?
Yes, right now, what we are doing at the national level is gumagawa kami ng anticipatory actions that will lead to providing assistance sa LGUs. So nag-stockpile na kami ng aming mga non-food items together with the SWD to augment the LGUs. And yung mga resources sa pag-evacuate ay naghanda na rin tayo ng ating AFP and Coast Guard resources like vehicles and men, that will help the local government units. Ngayon, ang pinaghahandaan namin ngayon ay yung pagtaas in the event na itataas sa alert level 4, because this will entail a lot of evacuation already, or will cover additional towns na magkaroon ng evacuation. So yun po ang pinaghahandaan natin ngayon.
Alright, so ano po ang tulong sa mga evacuees, and do you have enough supply of aid?
Yes, for now we have enough. We have our quick response fund, not just from OCD, but meron din sa DSWD and DOH to provide the essential supplies needed by the evacuees. So ang protocol naman natin dyan is we augment the local government units. So nakahanda po ang national government to provide these resources. Yung mga non-food items, tents, evacuation centers ay inaayos din natin. We will be calling on DPWH to check again itong mga evacuation centers in the event na magtaas pa ng alert level to 4.
Right, now looking at that footage, sir, mukhang medyo challenging mag-physical distancing sa mga evacuation areas. What are you doing to create a situation in which the evacuees will be able to social or physical distance more effectively given na nasa gitna pa rin tayo sa pandemya?
Yes, unang-una, we will be giving PPEs sa mga evacuees like masks, other essential individual equipment or supplies. But ang gagawin natin, nagawa naman ito, meron na kaming protocol on that, is we will have to reduce yung capacity ng mga evacuation centers. If before isang classroom can house 10 families, ngayon baka half na lang or even 1/3 lang ang pwedeng magstay dyan just to comply with the physical distancing. But also, ang dyan, yung hygiene natin, yung water, kailangan na continuous ang supply kasi tuloy-tuloy pa rin. We need to do our hygiene, yung maghugas ng kamay. So we will be doing that. So ito naman ay kasama natin ang DPWH, DOH, DSWD, we will be doing that habang hindi pa tumataas sa alert level 4. But sana hindi na, no? But for the meantime, itong mga nasa 2 towns ay we will make sure that we will help the LGUs, no, na mabigyan sila ng sapat na tulong para makakapag-comply din tayo sa COVID protocols.
Alright, Director, paano kung ayaw umalis sa area, even if nasa danger zone yung mga residente? What happens? Do they have to be physically moved? Is it still something that is voluntary at this point?
Right now kasi, yung iba, may ibang barangays na voluntary pa lang as of now kasi there are only 2 areas or LGUs na mandatory, no? Yun talagang forced evacuation ang ipapatupad natin dyan. Kasi yan po ang advice ng PHIVOLCS and we will be doing that. We have done that before. Kung ayaw naman na sumunod now, nandyan naman ang ating mga tauhan who will get them. We will talk to them together with the LGUs na talagang kailangan umalis muna sila dyan. And then the rest, voluntary muna. But dun sa 2 areas na sinabi ng PHIVOLCS, yung nasa advisory nila kahapon ay forced evacuation po muna ang gagawin natin dyan. Just to make sure na zero casualty tayo dito sa event ng Taal ngayong taon.
Yes, definitely. Pero so far, sa alam nyo po, naging cooperative naman yung mga residente sa areas where evacuation is mandatory?
Yes, very cooperative naman yung ating mga barangays. No? That's the report we got from our LGU sa Batangas and we are very happy na very cooperative po yung mga communities natin. We recognize na talagang ang LGU, yung Batangas, is on hand. Even the governor kahapon nag-order na po for their own resources to be used in the evacuation. So maraming salamat po sa kooperasyon ng lahat.
Okay, that is good to hear. Sir, paano naman na minomonitor yung island to make sure na walang pupunta doon? Because obviously that is a very off-limits zone.
Yes, just like what we did in 2020, we mobilized our PNP and Coast Guard, no? So nagkaroon ng mga choke points dyan na may mga law enforcement people tayo like the PNP and Coast Guard. And in fact, our Coast Guard will be patrolling yung piripiris niyan just to make sure na wala munang tao dyan for the next few days just to ensure at sana nga ibaba na ng PHIVOLCS yung alert. But that is part of our contingency. Our law enforcement agencies ay merong plano dyan. And we'll be making sure na ma-activate itong mga choke points and the patrols will be ongoing. So pakiusap lang po sa mga kababayan natin para din hindi delikado sa ating mga rescuers. Appeal na rin, no? If you are in the areas na kailangan mag-mandatory evacuation, sumunod lang po tayo. Our government, ang government natin, national and the local, are doing everything to provide the necessary tools for you, no, to habang nasa evacuation center kayo. So sa kaligtasan naman din po natin ito at sa ating mga rescuers.
All right, thank you for all those very important reminders and for speaking with us this morning, Civil Defense Director Bernardo Alejandro. Now, Taal Volcano's latest eruption led residents living near the volcano to flee their homes. Paolo Barcelon tells us more from Laurel Town in Batangas.
As early as Thursday evening, residents in Laurel, Batangas started fleeing to safer ground in neighboring towns. This family, still recovering from last year's eruption, is now on the run once again. They spent the night inside their owner-type jeep, bags packed, ready to go.
Ang bahay ko, kagawa-gawa pa lang dahil yung isa nasira. Ginawa uli ngayon, hindi pa tapos ang finish. Yun, gayon na naman.
They join other groups frantically waiting in other vehicles, some cramming themselves into a jeepney, most of them children.
Mga bagong galing po sa sakit, yung mga bata. Puro mga nagkasakit po dahil siguro din po ng usok ng bulkan.
Inside Tikub Elementary School, parents like Marilyn are also dealing with the effects of volcanic ash on her children. Her heart bleeds as her children struggle.
3 araw na hong ari hinihika ako eh. Lahat mga anak ko hinihika. Gusto ko po maayos po yung aming tirahan na hindi po kami patakbo-takbo. Kasi ngayon lang po ako nakaranas na po ng gayuning na kami po ay patakbo-takbo pag na po ang bulkan.
And despite the swirling pandemic, evacuees inside this center sleep side by side, keeping physical distance and practicing protocols is challenging.
Hindi naman namin inaasahan na ngayong kanina ay magkakaroon ng ganitong sitwasyon.
The local government says it's finding ways to address congestion inside evacuation centers.
Since itong mga barangay na to ay magsama-sama sa isang evacuation center muna. At ngayon nga po, inire-ready na ng ating MSWD ang tent para po sa bawat isang pamilya.
That was our Paolo Barcelon reporting. Coming up, a commitment to embrace all forms of beauty regardless of body shape, size, or color. Our senior anchor and correspondent Ruth Cabal spoke with Unilever's Dorothy D. Ching on their positive beauty campaign. That's after the break. I'm Ria Tanwat Cotrillo. This is The Source on CNN Philippines.